Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
It's enthralling to see how the workforce landscape is evolving so rapidly. Traditional employment methods are being challenged and redefined by the rise of the gig economy. In fact, one of the World Bank reports stated that the gig economy accounts for up to 12% of the global labor market, which is much higher than previously estimated. Even more impressive is its promise for women and youth in developing countries. Given its scope, many people are opting for freelancing, contract work, and temporary positions. Now, businesses are compelled to rethink how they attract and retain talent. So, dear folks, this brings us to yet another episode of the Vantage Influencers Podcast. I'm your host, Sanjeevani Saikia, and in this episode, we'll discuss talent acquisition in the rise of the gig economy. Joining us is Lavanya Nandakumar. She is the Vice President and Global Head of Talent Acquisition at Prodapt. So, let's begin our conversation with her. Hi, Lavanya. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Before we dive into today's topic, talent acquisition in the gig economy, could you kindly share about your professional journey so far? We'd love to hear that from you.
Hi, Sanjeevani. Great to hear. Good to connect with you. And it's my pleasure as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I truly value this and the presence here in the Vantage HR Circle. Thank you so much. So I've been in the talent acquisition space for the last 25 years. I've been in the IT services industry as the talent acquisition and the HR person, predominantly talent acquisition. And I've worked for very long years, maybe close to 2 decades with Cognizant before joining Prodapt. And earlier to Cognizant, I have worked for organizations like GRO, earlier to that with SRA Systems, and being part of IT solutions hiring, BPO, ITIS space. So all the more that I've been in the IT industry for all the 25 years.
Great. Thanks for sharing your journey with us. I really appreciate it. So with your permission, I'd like to begin today's conversation on the topic.
Sure.
So the gig economy has undeniably transformed the way companies approach hiring. Say, with more people choosing flexible work arrangements, businesses are adapting their strategies to attract this new breed of workers. I think the traditional talent acquisition strategies that worked for decades may no longer be as effective. So I believe it would be great to hear it from you on how has the rise of the gig economy reshaped traditional talent acquisition strategies?
Yeah, so I think great question. See, I think the timing is very right when we are talking about this. So the pandemic, which is gone, that's what we understand, I think triggered some of the industries very heavily, which is the e-commerce, which is also the gig economy. So just before I deep dive into your question, I would like the listeners to understand gig economy a little better. Now, what we call as gig economy is people who are freelancers, people who spend quality time or possibly part-time into the jobs, and those who work independently. All these constitute gig economy. And the other thing is the gig economy at this point in time, when we are talking so much about it, about 15 million workers or more than that is already into the gig workforce. And it is expected to grow to 45 to 50 million by 2030, which means we are typically talking about 5% of total working population in India. India alone, I'm saying this, total working population will be gig workforce by 2030, which is huge. 5% of your entire workforce, which is going to believe in independent working, flexi working, is a big number. And if you look at the revenue coming out of this, at this point in time, as we speak, $455 billion is the gig workforce. It is the gig economy worth, right? And it is having around 17% of CAGR. So these are all big numbers. So we are not talking here about, or we are overriding and talking about a very basic contracting workforce. $455 billion is huge. We are talking about a huge market here. And quite recently, even 5 years ago, we used to call this as unorganized work sector, primarily because we were looking into the personal services, we were looking into the low skilled workforce, which is typically people who are into the share rides, people who are into home cleaning, home services, guest keeping, and personal care, or these kind of industries, low skill, medium skill,
Yes.
or personal services. But right now, what we are seeing is about close to 42% of the gig workforce is high skilled, is into IT services, is into designing, content writing, people who are majorly into pharma, oil and gas, IT industries. These are constituting 42% of the entire gig workforce, which is again a very big number, and it is expected to grow a lot more in the next few years. And what we are talking here is short term. I'm not even talking about a decade, in the next 3 to 4 years. So, going back to your question with this context in mind, how has this changed the recruitment and the talent acquisition is to a large extent. So today, the working model is when clients are talking to us, no longer you can actually say that this will take 60 days to hire, 90 days to hire. For certain skills, there is a large workforce which is available the next working day. Of course, it doesn't apply to all the skills across the IT industry, but to a large number of skills, you can possibly call it generic legacy. People are available. There are staffing companies which have them on the bench, who are ready to get billed, who are immediately available. So, one is it has made talent acquisition a little easy in terms of sourcing and reaching out to the talent. Also, at the same time, this is a contingent workforce, right? So it also means it comes a little more expensive than your regular employee, the full-time employee. And the talent acquisition needs to adopt. This is going to be the way forward. I don't think all of the new upcoming new age technologies, AI, and the cyber security, or anything multi-cloud, all of these are not going to hire FTE for long. These are going to come really from contingent workforce. And we are not talking here about unorganized sectors any longer.
Yes. So, while integrating gig workers offers numerous benefits, some of which you have already mentioned, it also presents unique challenges that organizations must navigate. Unlike traditional employees, gig workers often work remotely, have different schedules, and maybe less integrated in the company culture. So, according to you, what are the key challenges organizations face when integrating gig workers into their workforce? And again, Lavanya, how can these challenges be overcome?
Right. So, see, one is, I think the first part of your question, I think we need, we do have platforms, we do have ERPs in place that is specifically designed for, the gig workers, the contingent workforce. But what are the challenges we typically face? One, from the side of the workforce, the commitment levels will be very less. We need to be conscious of that. So if they are going to be billed for 4 hours a day, the clock stops at the end of 4 hours.
Yes.
Unlike some of us in the FTE model, where you are expected to override your working hours and even work long hours, I don't think this model clearly means that I'm available 4 hours. You leverage my work timings to the fullest. So they are not going to work extended hours on any day just because there is work pressure. Two, the commitment levels. It's just not about the work timings, but also the commitment levels, right? So when I'm part of this organization and when I really know my long extended delivery and my entire sincerity and valuable time is going to be measured and recognized and appreciated in the form of a promotion or a salary hike, the morale levels are very high. Here it is a very disconnected, disoriented workforce, right? So they are going to be working alone. Alone refers to remote working, or possibly they will not have a peer group. They will not have people to talk to apart from work. So essentially, it means they are more independent mentally as well. So I also guess the engagement levels need to be built, keeping in mind the gig workforce is going to constitute a large part of corporate world. I think there has to be engagement models that has to be specifically designed. There needs to be interfaces built between the HR and the contractor or the contingent workforce. They also need to be treated at par with the full-time employees. And it's just not about benefits, it's about the way you care for them, whether it's healthcare, whether it is career growth. Because the only difference here is that in this model, you're going to extract work exactly the way they are available and for the skills. So I think the mind shift that all of us need to have in talent acquisition is that you are clearly engaging with them for skills. So irrespective of an FTE or a contingent workforce, I think what we need to think is these are also people who are creating an impact on your revenue. They are also making your business grow, and hence it's important for us to extend the benefits to them as well. So I think the labor code that currently the government is working on, the exclusive labor code, needs to be in place to ensure that this workforce is also embraced very well.
Yes. So you have already mentioned right now that the skills is going to be very significant in the gig economy hiring process. I guess the qualities and skills that make a great gig worker can be quite different from those needed for full-time roles. Full-time employment often benefits from being deeply integrated into company culture and having long-term commitment, while gig workers need to be more adaptable and self-motivated due to the nature of their work. Considering these differences, in what ways does talent acquisition differ when recruiting gig workers compared to full-time employees? And most importantly, what skills are particularly valued in gig workers?
Right. So, see, talent acquisition's approach to this segment is at this point in time, we have very limited exclusive platforms for hiring gig workers, especially the high skilled ones. We do have platforms, I'm not denying that, but I think it needs to grow. There is a large space that still the industry needs to leverage to bring them together. And that is one area. So, talent acquisition's approach, because at this point in time, if I go to any particular platform and search for part-time or freelancers or independent workers, I don't think there is a very significant result that will throw, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to bring in more excessive focus in terms of how we bring them. The inclusivity of reaching out to these people is very important. So talent acquisition plays a very big role in the job descriptions. So I think eventually we should start using this as part of our job descriptions, that we are okay to hire both full-time and part-time employees, freelancers and independent workers. We are okay to leverage remote workers as well. So I think this should become a norm. It should become a very regular thing. It should not be seen as I will use contingent workforce as plan B. I think that needs to change for talent acquisition. And secondly, the way we get into the compensation part of it, at this point in time, all the compensation grids in all organizations are mostly tilted toward full-time employees. So in this case, very clearly, talent acquisition and HR teams need to work and create the benefits and the salary ranges for this gig workforce. I don't think this is fully ready and available. Third, the regulations around how we want to protect this workforce, especially this workforce also still works with somebody at your organization. So how do you want to protect them from a healthcare safety? A safety need not be a physical safety. Some gig workers also do come to office, but most of them work remotely. But it also means that you can be mentally harassed. You can still you can still be into a situation where you are not protected for whatsoever reason. It can be an online harassment. It can be whatever, right? So there has to be more regulations and policies to protect this workforce also. So I think talent acquisition needs to think from that perspective, right from the JD stage to all the way to doing referrals, everything that a TA today does for the full-time workforce. You need to replicate the same model for contingent workforce as well.
Yes. But according to you, what do you think companies are doing uh, in terms of protecting the gig workers? Do you think they're doing enough? Do you think they should be doing more? Or and what are the things that they are doing apparently at this point in time?
See, at this point in time, I think what we are clearly doing is this is no longer something that we are cooking in the lab. It is wide open. It is not at the theory level, it is practical. When I say 42% of the 15 million workforce that we have today in contingent is belonging to I skilled, which means if I'm tomorrow deciding to get into a gig workforce, I really know where to go and register. I really know whom to reach out to and how to voice out that I am a freelance worker or an independent worker, right?
Yes.
So I don't think that is not an issue here. But what I really think will be an issue, or possibly companies need to focus more on, is bringing this workforce as your regular workforce and counting on them in terms of your own head count, right, is very important. And how you want to engage with them, these are certain things that are clearly missing. Today, they are being hired, their contracts get renewed when their services are still needed, and you don't get to meet them, you don't get to onboard them beyond giving them an employee code, beyond giving them a valid ID card and login credentials and other stuff. I don't think we are engaging with them. So I think we need to definitely regulate this workforce in terms of how you want to. For example, I'm just thinking loud. For example, there can be an HR organization which can seriously look into engaging with contract workforce, not from making them converting them to a full-time employee, but also treating them as employees who is creating revenue for you, who are human beings. Treat them with respect. So every time an HR person walks to the production floor to catch up with a project manager or with an FTE or with a team leader, I think the same thing needs to be done even for contingent workforce. I think we need to regularly connect with them to understand if they are finding it easy to work with people, how is their performance improving, are they really getting their career groomed, is there a job mismatch, what they are hired for versus what they are delivering. All this, I think, is a huge gap.
True. I, as well as our listeners, will be interested to know what role does technology play in facilitating the recruitment and management of gig workers, and what are some of the innovative tools or platforms being used today? I think it's an inevitable question, and I'd love to know your take on it.
Right. See, I think what technology needs to do is the low skilled and the medium skilled. I think all of us know the names. There is an aggregation of them, especially in the share ride, deliveries, personal services space. So those, all of us who are listening to this and participating in this really knows how those platforms work. Today, it is no longer that you reach out to your friend to get to know at the low skilled and the medium skilled workforce levels. They are aggregated very well. They are being rated. They are being protected, and they are being paid. And you really know what you're paying, how much time it will take, all that. But in the high skilled environment, I think the aggregation is yet to happen. We don't have, there are a couple of technology aspects, but we need a lot more in terms of, how do we reach out to this audience more efficiently? Today, everything is mixed. In a job seeker space, everything is mixed. People really do not know if this is a contingent workforce, or if this is a opening for contingent workforce, or is it for a full-time employee. Everything is put together. Everything needs, I think, a lot more organized way of looking at it. And there needs to be tools or possibly technologies like chatbots, which can engage when some of your gig workforce is wanting to seek a query, wanting to seek a clarification. I think who is engaging with them is very important, and we need to bring in a lot of AI in this space as well. Whenever because their work measurement or possibly so for example, if Lavanya Nandakumar is a white collar contingent workforce in the HR space, right? I need to be labeled somewhere in all the platforms that I am available as a freelancer. In all the platforms, there has to be some AI that has to really map workers who are available, both full-time, part-time, white collar, blue collar, high skill, low skill, medium skill. So all the platforms, all the technology has got scope to actually start labeling every single subscriber as a full-time subscriber, high skilled, corporate function, or however you want to label it, contingent workforce, part of gig economy. Now those tabs can start appearing, right? So that is an indication that somebody is available. Now all these things doesn't exist. And it is very easy to do it as part of technology. All that you need to do is send surveys to the millions of people who have subscribed to platforms, asking them if people are wanting to appear as freelancers, wanting to be part of gig workforce, still working for companies. And today we are having a lot of background verification tools that needs to start capturing. And when I'm throwing a pre-BGV verification to a particular BGV vendor, their tools should identify that this person is a freelancer for the last 10 years, worked across all these companies. So technology has got a lot of scope to improve in this space.
Indeed. Again, ensuring a positive experience for gig workers is crucial for engagement and retention, even in temporary roles. I guess companies need to create an environment where gig workers feel valued, compensated, and with opportunities to grow. So, Lavanya, I'd like to know from you, how can companies ensure a positive experience for gig workers throughout the recruitment process and beyond, fostering engagement and retention in a gig-based arrangement?
Perfect. I think very right question. So I really think organization should start feeding this data into the ERPs, into the performance tools, into every single employee HR engagement tools. These contingent workforce needs to be not just your back-end paperwork, where somebody renews their contract, gives their contract, somebody extends their contract, somebody terminates their contract. Rather than that, they should start appearing as part of your skill matrix. So someone should actually say, this person, and X is a contingent worker in Salesforce, Y is a contingent worker in ServiceNow. Now you should have that data. You should really call out how efficient was these folks during their tenure tagged with any particular organization, and you should start maintaining database around them. Today we don't have database to embrace this workforce. We really do not know who is the top cream of this 15 million workforce, which is going to become 50 million in the next 6-7 years. We really do not know. There is no channels that are talking openly about this. There is no regulation that is talking about how we want to, but there is a lot of study going around this. We cannot deny that. And there is also a lot of theories coming out where people are saying this is going to be the way forward. Nobody, or possibly very less percentage of our workforce, is going to be tagged to organization. The issues or the question around loyalties, commitment, pride, collaboration, team management, all this is going to be very heavily contemplated by organizations. So I think how we can do this is Like every forum talks about AI, like every forum talks about digital transformation, every forum should, which is talking about diversity and inclusion, also talk about gig workforce. Now, no longer you can deny this. It is today starting with blue collar. It will soon become white collar also. It
Yes.
is already there. White collar people are already part of gig workforce, but I think largely that will be the way forward. So to put it straight, I think we need more HR policies, HR tools, and we need to start managing their identities and database like what we do for FTEs. We need to replicate the same model, Sanjeevani. I think what we need to do is what we have already done to embrace our employees. These are also our employees. I think they need to be anchored well. So I think we need to replicate the same model. And why not health insurance for them? For the time period they are engaged with you, why not provide that health insurance? Why not give them training exposure? Why not certify them? So why not is the question here. What stops us from doing so? There is no such thing as a full-time employee is going to work all their 35 years of career with one single organization, but you make them grow by giving them the right opportunity and also the right certification training, and you groom them with right mentors. So I think the same thing applies to the gig workforce also.
True. Absolutely. Okay, so Lavanya, shifting gears, the gig economy is poised to continue growing. And with that, the strategies for talent acquisition, I guess, will also evolve. So it's important for organizations to stay ahead of the curve and prepare for future trends to remain competitive. So looking ahead, what trends do you foresee in talent acquisition within the gig economy over the next 5 years? And how should organizations prepare to stay competitive?
Right. So as I told you, I think we need to be competitive in terms of the compensation and look at it from a skill-based approach rather than looking at it from a temporary or contingent workforce-based approach. So the skill-based approach will be the very heavy focus in the next 5 years and going forward. This is which means our compensation strategies will need to change based on skills. So your traditional approach of hiring somebody with credentials or from a particular institutes or with so many years of experience, or possibly you should have worked managing large teams, and your criterias and eligibilities and job spec, everything will go for a change. You are no longer going to be worried whether somebody has really worked in large organizations, branded ones, has traveled abroad or managed large teams, because you don't need all those to be an independent worker. You just need, if they have the skill. So your assessment is going to be for the skills, and you are only going to be looking at individuals to impact delivery immediately. And these are workforces which are going to make your life a little more easy than decades ago, when this model was not in full force, though the US, the western side of the world, and has really embraced this much before. In India, it is booming only in the last 4 or 5 years, especially post the pandemic. I think the approach will be very different going forward, and it is going to grow big. So from a talent acquisition perspective, we need to, first of all, fix the compensation issues around this practice. So skills need to be leveraged, and for which our compensation strategies around, let's say I want a B Tech or M Tech, MS with 6 years of experience, I will provide between this range to this range is our usual grid. Now you should start changing that and looking at it like, let's say this person has got ServiceNow, ITAM, ITOM modules. This person has got these skills, has delivered for this client, has worked in these spaces, and your assessment is going to obviously to validate if they have worked in those skills. And I think the question then needs to be on, if for this skill someone has got so much years of experience and I have validated and they have done that, then possibly you need to pay them per hour or per day this many dollars or this many rupees. So I think it need to be compensation strategies need to change, and your offer letters need to carry what kind of approach you want to give it to these kind of people rather than just a simple contract. So it needs to carry benefits around these workforces, and it has to be a lot more detailed because your regular employees are there with you for you to clear their queries. So we need to create an interface for the gig workforce. So from talent acquisition perspective, first of all, you need to start labeling them on skills rather than on the type of workforce, their availability. And also, the other aspect to it is the background verification. This approach will change significantly going forward. So do you really want to verify their college education, whatever we are currently doing for full-time employees, their education, their employment? Do you really want to verify all their employment? Because these people are going to work across multiple geographies, remote, multiple workers in a 1 year time frame. So how do you want to validate and verify this? The BGP vendors have got a lot of work around this. They need to think through this. So how do you want to verify a gig worker in the high-skilled environment? How do you want to give a report for them? Do you really need to carry out a background verification? So that's why I said the platforms and the technologies have got a lot more to do in terms of labeling workforce and starting to realize them, calling it out loud, and that will make life a lot more easier. And you don't have to do all this. So there is a lot of cost optimization involved. There is a lot of time that is getting saved here. So some of these things are going to go for a significant change, and also about the travel, the leave management, and how do you want to do for these people? So giving them a time off is important, even in a contingent space. Giving them time off is important, and they are going to work with your clients, so they need to travel. Today, the industry is looking at it like, the gig workforce is not eligible for insurance, not eligible for travel, not eligible for holidays. So I think all this needs to go for a change. You have to move into a skill-based workforce. See, I think the study also clearly indicates that the millennials and the Gen Z, they are more towards the gig workforce rather than getting into a permanent lock with any single organization. They are more towards this. That's what the survey is also indicating, right?
Yes.
I think a whole new working model needs to get built around this, because we are talking about 5% of our total working population, at least in India. Across the globe, they are saying it will be more than 10% in the next decade. So this is huge. So all that we want to do to get this workforce together, both from technology, process, regulation, data, is essential. And I think we are already halfway through in terms of the volume that is already into this, right? So it's not small, it's huge. So it's very important that the medium skilled is expected to fade away in the long run, but still they are at the peak right now. But the low skilled and the high skilled is going to grow. So what is essential is how do we want to leverage this workforce, because it is still creating revenues in billions for the economy. So we need to create the working model. We need to create newer policies to manage this. And it's important for organizations and aggregator mediums to talk this loud and bring it together.
Yes, great. Lavanya, you have answered all our questions lucidly. I'm sure our listeners will get a whole new perspective on gig workers and their working style, as well as how talent acquisition is happening in this particular area. So thank you so much for that. We have reached the end of today's podcast. Do you have any message for our listeners? Our listeners would be delighted to hear it from you. Also, Lavanya, our audience might want to stay in touch with you post this podcast. So it would be great if you could tell them how they can reach out to you.
Right. So the message for the workers is, for everyone listening, not just the workforces, everyone listening is, I think we need to adapt quickly in context to what we just spoke. I think we need to adapt. We have very less time. There is a huge technology transformation and disruption and revolution that's happening, which everyone knows, the artificial intelligence. And there is also a very different workforce and a very different alpha generation that is coming into play. So huge disruption is happening. So adoption. That's the only way to work forward and remove the stigmas around some of the traditional, conventional workplace norms and work styles that we have been doing for the last 3 decades. It is still okay. I think the economy needs to grow, for which we need to quickly move into these newer models. So it is important to adapt and enable it at whatever levels you are, embrace and enable it. And to reach out to me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So anyone can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and Lavanya Nandakumar is my identity. I work for Prodapt and I manage the global talent acquisition. So all those who are listening, I wish you all the very best. And may all of us put together the best foot forward and embrace this generation and the new working model for the gig workforce.
Lavanya, thank you so much for joining in today's episode. You and your insights were amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Sanjeevani. I truly appreciate the way you allowed me to, think through my mind and validate my thoughts and talk about it. It's a great opportunity. All the best to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.